Today we're going to jump into guided writing, what it is, why we need to do it, and of course, how to do it effectively. So if this video interests you, keep on watching. Welcome back. If you're new here, my name is DiGilio. I was a primary teacher for 23 years, and on this channel, we really dive deep into streamlined and effective small group instruction, mostly reading, but we might get into a little bit of math sometime soon. So if these types of videos interest you, please click that subscribe button and that little bell next to it so that you're alerted every time one of my new videos goes live. Let's jump into guided writing. So guided writing is an approach to writing instruction that typically happens in a small group setting, like a guided reading group. And it really allows the teacher and the students to have a lot of one-on-one interaction in order for the teacher to guide the students in their writing, to offer the support and the lessons and information that they need to become effective and avid writers, right? We really focus on the conventions of print. We focus on capitalization, punctuation, spelling, spacing. We focus on sentence structure, how the sentences sound, right? We focus on all of these things during guided writing, and it's like it gives you that one-on-one interaction with students when you're doing guided writing in a small group situation or small group setting, because it gives the teacher ample opportunity to conference one-on-one with students as well. So it is a great time to really practice those writing skills that are directly related to a text that they read during your small group instruction. So my guided writing activities always are directly related to the book that we read during our small group instruction. Guided writing always takes place during day 3 of my guided reading instruction, but we'll get into that a little bit later. So that's basically what guided writing is. It allows you to teach writing skills, writing instruction in a small group setting. You can also do this in strategy groups as well when students need to work on a specific type of guided writing activity that they may be struggling with. A strategy group is wonderful for that. A strategy group is our students that are on all different types of levels but really need to focus on one specific skill or strategy that they all need to work on. They don't need to be working on the same book, but you could bring a strategy group together to really hone in on that specific skill that they may be having some issues with. So strategy groups are great for guided writing to help them really hone in on those skills or strategies that they may be struggling with. So let's get into why, right? So we talked about what guided writing. I'm going to keep saying guided reading because I talk about guided reading all the time. Let's get into the why. Let's talk about why we do guided writing in our small group instruction. Guided writing really helps students focus on their phonics skills, right? When students are writing, which is the encoding process, right? They are focusing on hearing sounds and understanding what letters match those sounds that they hear in those words to get them down on their piece of paper. So writing incorporates so many different skills: blending, segmenting, phoneme identification, and also just alphabetic principles as well, especially for those children in kindergarten or even first grade, where they're really still learning the alphabet and the sounds of the letters, right? So guided writing really is effective for phonics instruction as well. Countless studies have been done that writing instruction and writing practice increases reading skills and reading abilities. So these two really must go hand in hand, and that's why guided writing is always part of my small group guided reading instruction. It has to be. You've got to connect the reading and the writing. Another reason why we do guided writing is because it really creates confident readers. When students write and then they read back their own writing, it really helps them become more confident in their reading abilities because they already have experience with the text because they actually wrote it. So that reading and writing, again, together actually creates more confident readers. And the International Literacy Association said this. I'm actually going to read it exactly, word for word. They say, writing and the teaching of writing enhance not only students' comprehension and fluency when reading, but also their recognition and decoding of words in a text. Not only that, but writing about material that a student has already read truly increases their comprehension of a text. So that's why the writing and the reading need to go together hand in hand. One helps the other. So it's really important to incorporate both in your reading instruction. And number 3, we all know that writing brings in creativity, right? We want students to bring in their creativity and their imagination in their writing. So that allows children to do that as well. So it really helps to let them kind of use their imagination and their creativity when they're writing. And overall, writing really increases a student's communication skills as well. So by being able to take their thoughts and put them on paper helps to build their communication skills also. So that's another very important part of the writing and of the explicit teaching of writing. Now that we talked about what guided writing is and why guided writing is important, let's talk about the how, right? So the how is when we do it during small group instruction. So as I mentioned on all of my lesson plans in our guided readers program, day 3 is our guided writing time. Day 3 is when we write in response to the story that we read. And as I mentioned in previous videos, my guided writing activity always corresponds to the comprehension skill that I want us to focus on for that specific book. So I'll ask multiple questions during our reading because remember, we're going to work on this book for 3 days. So I'll ask different types of questions that focus on different comprehension skills. But then during day 2 of our lesson is when I'll discuss what I know our guided writing focus will be the next day. So for example, this book, Treasure at Lone Park, this is a level L book, so it's a 2nd grade level book, but of course we have all levels from A all the way through Q at this point. R through Z we continue to add every day. But this particular book, we're going to focus on story elements in the book Treasure at Lone Park. So when we're doing a guided writing activity during day 2, which is not the day for guided writing, I will talk and we will have discourse about story elements. We'll talk about what the setting of the story was. We'll look back and we'll look for the evidence of what the setting of the story was, right? So we'll talk about that in our discourse after we do our second reading. Then we'll talk about who are the main characters and how do we know they're the main characters. Again, this is during day 2. Then we'll talk about what was the problem in this particular story? What problem were the main characters having, right? And I'll also, if I've already taught somebody wanted but so then, I'll also bring that in. Remember when we did somebody wanted but so then, keep that structure in your mind because it can help you with this, right? And then we talk about what the solution to the problem was. So on day 2, we'll talk about these concepts of story elements orally. I'll ask questions, they'll answer, we'll find proof in the book. Then on day 3, which is our 3rd day, which is when the guided writing actually happens, that's where we focus on the writing in response to the reading. So this is an interactive notebook activity that focuses on story elements for this particular book, Treasure at Lone Park. So now I'll say, remember yesterday we talked about the setting and we provided evidence. We showed how we knew that was the setting. We talked about the characters. We talked about the problem. We talked about the solution. Well, today what we're going to do is we're going to write about the setting, the characters, the problem, and the solution. And we're going to do it in an interactive notebook. So now at this point, I'll say to them, okay, boys and girls, we're going to write about what the setting was, the story. What was the setting of the story? And of course, the book is in front of them. And we know the setting of this story is Camp Lone Pine. That's the name of the camp that the mom and the dad and the 2 children were at. So we're going to say the setting of the story was Camp Lone Park. So I want you to write that under your flap of your interactive notebook. Now, I'm not going to write it here. We've already discussed it. They have the book in front of them. This is where that writing instruction comes in now. So now I'm going to lean in and I'm going to watch them as they're writing. I'm going to watch for concepts of print again. We're going to look at capitals. We're going to look at punctuation. We're going to look at spelling. We're going to look at spacing. We're going to look at sentence structure. We're going to look at, is it grammatically correct? So this is the time where I'm leaning in. I'm making sure that all of those things we're taking into consideration when they're doing their writing. And I'm leaning in to help them, right? So this is where you get those little mini conferences to help students with certain concepts that maybe they're struggling with, or they're not spacing their words correctly, or they're not utilizing their phonics and their blending and their segmenting knowledge of phonics to help them with words that they don't know, right? So this is where I'm going to prompt them with their writing. So after they do that, I say, okay, boys and girls, who were the characters in the story? Well, the characters in the story were mom and dad and the 2 children. So they'll flip up their little flap on the interactive notebook, and I'll say, okay, boys and girls, who were the characters in the story? Tell me a whole sentence. The characters in the story were mom, dad, and their 2 kids. So I want you to write the characters, and if you don't know how to spell characters, where can you look? You could look right on the front of the flap. The characters in the story are mom, dad, and the 2 kids. This is a great part to talk about commas, right? How to use commas in a list. So this is where I'll say, because we're doing more than 2 characters, or this is considered a list, because we're doing more than 2 characters, we're going to need commas between mom, dad, and the kids. And I'll show them how to use commas in a list. That's just a quick little mini lesson, like a 2-second mini lesson that I'll throw in there about comma usage, right? Because we want to have them experience that, understand that commas exist, and we have to separate those. It's called words in a list, right? So that might be somewhere I talk about commas, and I'll tell them that when they're doing their writing. And then we go into the problem. What was the problem of the story? And I'll ask them, what was the problem of the story? We already talked about it. The problem of the story was mom and dad went to Camp Lone Pine every year, and one year she lost her gold ring by their favorite tree, and she was very upset about it. That was the problem. So we talked about it the day before because we went over it during our discourse, during our discussion questions, and now I'm going to have them write their problem under the flap. Then, of course, we'll go into the solution, and we'll write the solution of the story, and I'm not going to give it up. I want you to see how the problem was solved. But we'll do this together. I'll do this with them. But again, I'm not doing any writing here. We're discussing it, and now I want to see what skills that they have in their writing. Now that we know that what we're writing about, we already read the book twice. This is where I want those writing skills to come in, and this is where I do that those little tiny mini lessons and little conferencing one-on-one, and focus on specific skills and strategies with each child. So really, that's what we do on day 3, every day 3 of all of our lessons. We focus on a specific comprehension skill, whatever it may be. This one happened to be story elements. Another one could be summarizing, retelling plot, sequencing events, cause and effect, beginning, middle, and end, character analysis, how characters change. We could talk about making connections. We talk about compare and contrast if we're talking about maybe a nonfiction book or a nonfiction text. All of those comprehension skills that we want to focus on, we do it during day 2 where we'll talk about it. We'll have discourse. And then day 3 is when the writing comes in response to the book that we just read, whether it's fiction or nonfiction. So every one of our books comes with a guided writing activity that aligns with the comprehension. Now, the only time a book does not come with a guided writing comprehension is our A, B, and C books, because those are our kindergarten books. They're early readers. And when you're focusing on guided writing for these books, A, B, and C level, you're actually doing sentence dictation about the book, focusing on sight words, and having students write sight words in their sentences, concepts of print, understanding spacing between words, capitals, periods, and then maybe using some of the short vowel words or the phonics skill that they were focusing on in that particular book with the sentences they write in their guided writing notebook or their booklet. So I'll use these with my students that have no lines in them for those early level readers. Now again, I taught 2nd grade, so typically my students were able to write and we didn't need the early level writing. However, if I had children that were reading on a level A, B, or C and came into 2nd grade, and that did happen, I would work with little booklets like this because they really did need help with their guided writing. So this is how I do it with the lower levels, A, B, and C. So those lower level books, that's what I'll do. But for everything higher than level C, we have a specific guided writing lesson that focuses on the comprehension skill, okay? So I wanted to make sure I explain that. The last thing I want to tell you about with guided writing is keep it fresh. Keep it fresh, keep it new, keep it different, keep it exciting. So I want to tell you how I do that. Now, as I said, every single one of our books and guided readers comes with a guided writing activity on a specific comprehension skill. But I also really like to really change it up from time to time. Do something different because we want to keep their attention during guided reading. And so if we do the same thing over and over and over and over again, they're going to get really bored. So the way that I do that is by bringing in a couple of different projects that I'm going to show you. So what I'll do is for all the different books that we read. Now remember, I'm reading a different guided reading book every week with my students, plus I do close reading. So not only do I do guided reading, but I also do close reading with my students as well. And of course, guided readers has hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of close reading passages. But I just want to show you some of the projects that I do that focus on guided writing that are different but yet the same, okay? So here's what I mean by that. For example, oops, all my little pieces are coming out. Let me show you a finished one. So for example, I will do a lap book project that lasts sometimes 3 months, maybe even 4 months. And what it is whatever I'm working on, whatever book we're working on, so let's say we're working on The Treasure at Lone Pine, and I'll say, okay, we wanted to do, this particular story was working on, let's say, here's an example, this was sequencing. So I might say, okay, we're going to sequence this story using the time order words first, next, then, last, after that, or it's first, next, then, last, or first, next, then, after that, last, finally. So maybe we'll do this activity using the book Treasure at Lone Pine, and then we'll put it in a file folder. So this file folder, these are my guided reading flip-flaps, focus on all different comprehension skills that you have to do, but for all different books. So we build this out, and sometimes it takes 2 or 3 months to build out because I don't always do this. But like I did a cause and effect activity for a book that we read. I did comparing and contrasting topics. This one was comparing and contrasting insects and spiders. So that was an explosion book. This one was problem and solution. So it was a little tab book that we focused on for problem and solution. So this is how I change it up from week to week. So we're still doing guided writing, we're still doing some interactive notebooks, but now we're doing interactive flip-flaps, and they go inside of a little flip-flap folder or a lap book. This one was rhyme and repetition because we did a poem. So this was focusing on rhyme and repetition. This one was focusing on author's purpose, and it's called A Pocket Full of Author's Purpose. So this one was focusing on a nonfiction text, and we were talking about the topic and then facts to support the topic. So as you can see, and then what we do is we write every book that we read right here on the cover. So these are called my guided reading flip-flap books. And then we make this as a project. And then when it's full, I send it home, and the parents can see all of the different books that we read during guided reading instruction. So this is how I change it up. This is how I keep it consistent, but make it fun and engaging. So this is one of the things that we'll do throughout the year, where we'll do guided writing, but we put it in a little lap book. And then our lap book gets built out from story after story after story after story. So it's not just one book in this lap book, it's lots of books. So here's an example. Here's just a blank one that I have, and we just have a lap book. You could see all of the different focuses. Author's purpose, I Spy nonfiction text features. This is an explosion book comparing and contrasting characters. So this is an explosion book comparing and contrasting characters. This one is another way to do cause and effect. So it's all different little flip-flaps and foldables to put in. This was poetry. This is summarizing and focusing on the moral of the story. Cause and effect. We have title, setting, characters, thoughts, and actions, and plot. This one is a character trait wheel. Comparing stories. I can summarize a story. So this was, you could use this to summarize a story. This would work great with Barry Badger Bakes a Cake that we just did a little while ago. This was who, what, when, where, why, how. So these are all different types of guided writing activities. Vocabulary, if you want to focus on multiple meaning words or vocabulary words in a book because it's got a lot of tier 2 or tier 3 vocabulary you want students to learn. Maybe that's the focus of that particular book. My point is, Keep it fresh, keep it new, keep it different, yet consistent, right? So we want to keep it new and different, but we want to keep a consistent structure. So we always do guided writing on day 3, but yet I'll change it up and add these little fun elements to it so that my students didn't get bored. We changed it up, but yet it was still guided writing. Here's another example. So this is an example of my guided reading detective booklets. So it's just like this lap book that I just showed you, but this has a detective theme, right? So this one has so many different things, but they're all detective themed, and I made it into like a little briefcase. My little handle broke off because I've been using it for years. So as you can see here, let me show you, this shows you all the different activities we can do. These are guided writing activities, but a detective theme. Again, this can be done for one book if you're doing, let's say you're doing a novel or a book study or a chapter book. Great to do that. Or it could again be used for any book that you're doing. So this is vocabulary instruction. So it says top secret words and it's vocabulary. So you open it up and the students are writing the words down and the meaning of the words and illustrating them. This is what's the scene. So here maybe they're drawing the setting of the story and writing about the setting of the story. This is the lineup, it's called. These are the characters, and maybe we write about a character trait that the character possessed. And again, we also provide evidence to support why the character possess that particular character trait. This is about title clues. This is about writing the title, drawing an illustration, thinking about the title of the book, what we think the book's going to be about, making predictions. Look at the illustration on the front cover. Did the illustration give you any clues about the book? So these are all different types of writing activities that you can do, guided writing activities that you can do with your students, but keep it fresh, keep it new, keep it different. This one is answering questions. So here is who, what, when, where, why, how, and writing beginning, middle, and drawing beginning, middle, and end, or problem and solution pictures. Here is witness reports. So these are the character traits, again, proof of that character trait, or how are the character changed, or how the character reacted to a problem or conflict, because that's the standard. Here is, again, this one's beginning, middle, and end. So here they were telling the plot, summarizing. All different types of skills. This is about evidence. This is about a character's feeling why they felt that way and providing evidence to support that. So this is my detective unit that I use, again, for guided writing to keep it fresh and different. So I don't always do it in notebooks. We'll build this out. And then what we have here is we write down, again, every book that we read that we did an activity for this. This paper right here is just cardstock. And it's folded. It's the 12 by 18, I think it is, or 9 by 18, whatever size that is, cardstock. Here, this is first, next, then, after that, last, finally. Events in the investigation. So here, they're going to write about story events using time order words. Who's who? Comparing and contrasting characters in a story. What's the story? Comparing and contrasting different stories. What's the cause? This is cause and effect. So these are all different types of activities in this particular book, and this one is great because it really adds in the phonics instruction. So here, I spy, these are little matchbooks, I spy short A words. So now what you could do is if you're focusing on short A, you could break out this little matchbook, and I want you to find find 10 short A books in the book, 10 short A words in the book. Find 10 short E words, find 10 short I words. Now this booklet's going to take a while, right? It's not going to be done in a week. This will take a couple of months, but they love it. So I create the folders and I leave them behind my desk in my little guided reading buckets for each group. So if ever we're doing them, we take them out and then we glue them in, and at the end they have such a great project. It's the exact same thing when I was talking about this, except this is detective theme to change it up, and this doesn't have a detective theme, but they're all guided writing activities. So you focus on reading, and on day 3, if you're focusing on cause and effect, or beginning, middle, end, or retelling, or sequencing, or character traits, whatever, add in a new type of activity that keeps it fresh, yet consistent. That's what we're looking for. So that's another type of activity that I do with my students. So these are all types of guided writing activities. The last one I have are my novelettes. And my novelettes is really when you're focusing on one book. So let's say you're working with your advanced level readers and you're doing a chapter book. This is the perfect type of activity to do with a chapter book because they're going to focus on different parts of the book that you give them directions on. So here they're going to write about something the character said, how they know what evidence to support what the character said. What they can infer about the character based on what the character said. Something the character did was, and then what they can infer about something the character did. So whatever the character did, they write it and then they make an inference about it. So this is really much higher level skills right here. Then we have a visualizing activity, visualizing something in the story, and I'll give them directions on it. Here is summing it up. So this is where they'll write a chapter summary for every chapter in the book. That's this one. Word wizard is where they're finding words they don't know and then writing down what they think the word means and then what the word really means, either sometimes by using the context of the story or a dictionary. This is, again, at the end, they will write about the beginning, middle, and end of the story and retelling the plot. This is focusing on characters. So they'll write the character traits the character possessed, and then they'll show and provide evidence from the text that showed the character possessed those traits. And this is talking about themes. So this is a theme explosion book where they're talking about theme and then providing evidence to show that that is the theme of the story. So this is called my novelettes, and on the front they write the title of the book that they're reading. I did this with a book called Muggy Maggie, one of my favorite books to read with my advanced readers in my class. It's a chapter book. It's called Muggy Maggie. You got to check it out. It's one of my favorites. I always did this project with Muggy Maggie. That was one of them. And then they'll draw pictures of either the characters or scenes from the book that they were either visualizing about the book or just beginning, middle, and end. You decide how you want to use this part of the booklet. But this is what I mean when I say change it up, make it fun, make it exciting. By adding different types of guided writing activities, make that really shakes things up and it makes it exciting for the students. So they're not doing the same thing over and over again, just change it up. Add a different type of guided writing activity and make it fun and engaging for the students. So my friends, that's it. I wanted to tell you all about guided writing today, how I do it, why we do it, what guided writing is. I really hope that you found this video helpful. And if you did, please click that subscribe button and that little bell next to it so that you're alerted every time one of my new videos goes live. And don't forget, you know I've got a freebie for you down below. So click that freebie below and enjoy using it in your classroom. And definitely check out some of these different types of activities that I do with my students because it really added so much engagement and fun and rigor during our guided writing activities. So thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Happy teaching. Bye for now.